This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Judaism Without Apologizing. In this episode, I sat down with the great Reb Eytan Feiner, the Reb of the White Shul in Far Rockaway, as well as a major rabbinic force in America and in Eretz Yisrael and around the world. And we got into some pretty edgy topics as we talked a bit about influencers. We talked about the current state of Jewish music. We talked about if everything is okay with Thank You Hashem. We talked about Matisyahu, amongst many other pretty interesting topics, and I think you're going to be intrigued to say the least. So without further ado, Reb Eytan Feiner on Judaism Without Apologizing. Thank you very much, Rabbi Feiner, for coming on to the Judaism Without Apologizing podcast. It's a schus and honor to have you. So you are the Rav of one of the most vibrant communities in America and in the world, and in many ways, the trendsetters of a lot of areas of Yiddishkeit. And I want to talk about that a little bit. There was a time when Hashkafa and Das Torah was sort of from the Rabbanim and the Rosh Yeshivas, and it trickled down. I think it's safe to say that that ship has slightly sailed. And nowadays, a lot of our influence and hashkafa comes from influencers and people with loud megaphones and people who are exciting and cool and good at social media. Does this pose a danger? And if it does, what should one do about it to protect themselves, their children, from sort of getting swept up with whatever hashkafa is being dictated by the loudest social media personalities in the Jewish world, as opposed to coming from the classical sources of Rabbanim and Rosh Yeshiva?
It's a great question, one we could spend, I believe, hours talking about. And I enjoy very much this opportunity. Allow me to just preface that it's a schus for the tzibur listening that Rabbi Eisenberg Shlita has been doing and continues with Siyata D'Shmaya Meruba to do a fantastic job. And I think the title really captures so much of what you set out to do, that we have to present the emes to Klal Yisrael as best as we can. And the forums, the platforms for disseminating the emes, obviously we have to adapt to a certain extent to the time. So starting with that excellent question, you know, it's a big issue. It's an issue that a lot of people have brought to my attention, the influence of the influencers, and what's happening to Das Torah today. And, you know, typically we put Rabbanim, Rosh Yeshivas, certainly Gedolei Hador, they should be guiding us. They should be the manhigim, and the ones who are madrachos, b'chol yom v'yom. And so we have a large segment of the population, Baruch Hashem, that's doing just that. But there's a big problem. There's a big problem with all the social media outlets out there and the time that people are being mevazves, that they're really wasting. And a side issue is, of course, the one you're bringing up, you're broaching right now, which is that people are they're listening to the influencers, they're watching the podcast, they're attentive. It's a big problem. Why? Because in the end of the day, our job is to be misdabek to the Borei Olam. Our job is to be an Eved Hashem. So how do we know how to be an Eved Hashem? It used to be, rewind, back to the times of the Mishkan and the Batei Mikdash. It was Gevaldik, yet an Urvatum. And you went to the Kohen Gadol, tell me, what's my tafkid in this role? What am I supposed to be doing? And everything was simple. Now we have a big avoda. We don't have an Urvatum anymore. But who are the people that get sprinkled with Ruach HaKodesh? Who are the closest individuals to tapping into that depth of the Ruach HaKodesh, that inspiration from the Olamas Ha'Yonim, Bava Basri, and Beis Amanav, Chacham Adif Minavi. As the Maral explains, in his Chedush HaGodos, a Navi could only be Masa, could only grasp what the Eibishter gives him as a matana. Mashenkin Chacham, he took his Amelus in Yegiya B'Taira. He could tap into a level of Ruach HaKodesh, and Rabban explains that he could tap into certain things that even a Navi might not be privy to. So Chacham Adif Minavi. How do we connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? We go to Ksivus Kufir Aleph Amud Beis. L'davka bo v'chi efshar l'dabek b'shchina l'kot v'rakesh. We can't be misdabek to the Borei Olam. Teretz is what? To be misdabek, zot the Gemara, zot Chazal, it's a Talmidei Chachamim. Why? Because they're the link. They're that crucial bridge to interconnect us to the Borei Olam and to the Ratzon HaBorei. So if everybody agrees that our job is to be an Eved Hashem, and we want to do the Ratzon Hashem. Brachas Yadayim Amanaf. If you want to do the Ratzon Hashem, how do I know what the Ratzon Hashem is? So go to the people that are closest, that are in proximity to the Shekhinah, people that are living with the Shekhinah, that are mizdabik to the Borei Olam, and Chazal are being Megala, they're revealing that. That secret is be mizdabik to Tamir Chachamim, to the Rabbanim, to the Rosh Yeshivas, to the Talmidei Chachamim, the Gedolei Manhigei Hador. Be mistabik to them. So how you mistabik? Mahana tamachacham yinuchasav. Ose promatya tamachacham. Meisipito le tamachacham. Go in and connect to them in a way, not just in Ruchnius, but as the Megid Yosef and Parsha Sekeb explains, connect a shibud mitzad yolam agashmi, and thus you have a relationship with them. You marry if you do it.
Can I pause the Rav for a minute? Does the Rav feel that a lot of Rabbanim are more and more being put like in an untouchable sphere? They're either too yeshivish, too out of date, not aware of like the struggles that working guys in Manhattan have, or girls who have a smartphone, whether you like it or not, and they don't know. And very often it's just the same. Your sheitel's too long, or you're not learning enough, and therefore, mamela the rise of the influencer to fill the void, the natural void of some guidance, of some hashkafic direction. What's the solution? Obviously, we don't want to tell Rabbanim to come down to the level of the peasants, of the Pashat Yidden. But what else is the solution?
So I don't think for a lot of those questions, we don't need to have that address of the Rabbi Yoshers, the Rochaims, the Ron Labes. That would be gewaltig if everybody had that personal yachas, a yachas ishi with Gedoli Yisrael. That would be gewaltig. I went to a Godol. I remember I was 19 years old. I had just gone to Nei Yisrael, and I met with Rapam after breakfast. He was in the Five Towns. I told my younger brother, it was Beina Azmanim, and Rapam is speaking in town. Forget the bagels and lox. Let's go speak to Rapam. So I stayed afterwards. Everyone, gave a shalom aleichem. I said, it's great. I had Rapam to myself. I sat down. I asked him, Mamish, Dvon de Maruma Shalom. And he looked at me. He listened attentively. And Rapam smiled and he said, Eytan, I don't know you. If I don't know you, how can I guide you? I said, that's an Adam Kodol. So the Torah says what? It would be great if we had our personal Rav Chaims and Rav Yashivs. But the vast majority of Klausel, we don't have that. So the Torah says what? Everyone's got to get a Rav. Everyone's got to get a Rebbe. But that Rav, that Rebbe might not be the Godel B'Yisrael. It doesn't have to be. There's a Hasidic Amaisa of somebody, he was a chassid by a young Rebbe and a certain shtetl in Europe. And everything he asked of the Rebbe, he was matzliach. He saw the Rebbe mamash, everything the Rebbe told him, hein b'yolam haruchni, hein b'yolam hagashmi, he was matzliach. And then also one Shabbos, his Rebbe wasn't there. He says, where's his Rebbe? He says, the Rebbe went to his Rebbe. He said, what am I wasting my time with the young Rebbe? Let me go to the Rebbe's Rebbe. I'll be even more matzliach. I'll make even more money. So he takes off, moves his entire family, goes to the other town, and he starts asking that the Rebbe was cousin. He's not matzliach. He's mamish. Everything is failing. He goes back to the younger Rebbe. He says, I understand. He says, everything I listen to you, I figured I'm going to get double, kiflei kiflayim when I go to the Rebbe's Rebbe. He says, you understand, Abishah had you living here. It means Hashem is telling you, you're linked to your Das Torah to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Is this Rebbe? He's young. He's not as big. He says, of course I'm not as big as my Rebbe. It doesn't make enough Kamina. The job of the Rav Rebbe is to see himself, not that he's the biggest Tamachacham Agona. Torah says that he's a Shliach. That's it. Shluchit Rachmana on that. So if you're a shliach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that shliach could be 30 years old, it could be 60 years old, it could be 90 years old. But he's the shliach that the Eibusher sent. It's all a shidduch.
So can I pause? I'm sorry.
So everyone's got to have that Rav. Everyone's got to have the Rebbe.
What is the Rav? What do you say to somebody who's living in a community where he davens at 6 different shuls, one Kabbalah Shabbos, one for Marav Motzei Shabbos? The Rav that he has, he doesn't connect with. He went to Chaim Berlin. He's from YU. It's not a shidduch, but he's not walking distance to any other Rabbanim. The one charismatic Rav in town is swamped with people. So what's the answer for such a guy?
It is a great question. And if that person came to ask me, I'd say, stop everything you're doing and find that Rav. Find the Rav. You don't have to daven by him necessarily, but make that person your Rav, but you got to go after it. If you recognize the chashivas of it and how crucial it is for you, for your shalom bayis, for raising your children, for stam ha'tzracha in all aspects, kol chelkei hachayim, you got to find that Rebbe. How do we begin Perkei Avos? Right at the beginning of Perkei Aleph, we have already Asei L'charav, Knei L'chachavar. So you might think, what do you mean, Knei L'chachavar comes in the heels of Asei L'charav? Oh, Chavrusa Mesusa, the whole Sugan Tainus. What do you mean, a Chaver? Without a Chaver, Chaim Shmulevitz's famous part, Eve, you could take away everything, the Sultan, you can't take away his friends, because that's his life. But how do we begin? You can have all the Chaverim in the world, but it's got to be with Asei L'charav. You got to, that's the foundation. You got to, so I tell everybody, it doesn't have to be the Golador. It doesn't have to know Shas and Poskim. It's got to be someone who knows you, someone that you respect, obviously, but someone who's working on himself to be the biggest, best Eben Hashem that he could be. And that you're going to work with him, under him, to yourself be inspired to become the biggest, best Eben Hashem. But a person who's going to navigate life, especially in today's society, and say, I'm going to do it all on my own, it's not shaykh. And Lamaisa, every Rebbe needs a Rebbe. Somebody came to speak to me once. I said, let me run that by my Rebbe. He said, Rabbi Feiner, you're in your 50s. The Rebbe though said, what are you? I'm asking you. I said, yeah, I'm not the Tachan Sufit. I said, if I have a suffix, I could call my Rebbe up at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I'll go and see Berkowitz Lita. I'll call him up anytime, a day or night, pretty much. And if I need Hadracha, every Rav needs a Rav. Every Rebbe needs a Rebbe. We all have Nikias. We're all blinded. Everybody has biases in so many aspects of life. Teretz is what? You got to get a Rebbe. Are you davening at 6 different shuls? That itself is a shayla. Should he be davening at 6 different shuls? Let's talk about what shul. You don't want to daven at the white shul, I understand. Okay, no problem. You don't have to daven. An honest Rebbe will say you don't have to daven by. I want you to daven. I tell people all the time. I had people left the show, people who asked me questions. I want you to daven where you will emerge the biggest, best, and greatest evidence you can be. If the white shul is the right place, Beseder. But there are people, I could have a Talmud, when I taught in Eretz Yisrael for 6 years, I have people I'm still close with today. They're in all different places in the world. They'll still call me up for Shilas. And as a Rebbe, I'll do the best that I can. A Rebbe is someone who says, I'm going to go ahead and sacrifice time and energy, and I will give my Talmidim and anyone who asks. Teretz is you got to be a notch. You got to push. All this is telling us this is the moral, ethical compass of life. Asay l'charav. Then you can worry about yaknei l'chachaver b'cholei. You got to start with having a Rav. You can start. That's the way to be misdabik to the Shechina. That's the way to get that sprinkling, that taste of Ruach HaKodesh, to know how do I navigate my life. But it's got to be a two-way street.
So let me ask another question. If anybody would come into their house and see a magazine or a book of kfira, they would throw it out and hunt down the person who brought it there and slap him in the face. But nowadays, we have phones that have a constant stream of kfira or quasi-kfira or influencers who are camouflaging subtle anti-Torah values as just fun and games. Mm-hmm. And we sort of consume it wholesale. What is a good way to navigate this increasingly crazy world of social media, where I want to be down to earth and normal with it, but I also want to have guidelines where I don't just consume, or my kids or my wife doesn't just consume everything that's out there and think it's normal? What would be a good guideline?
So that's a great question. I think it comes back. A lot comes back to that first point that we've been discussing, which is having that Rebbe to go in and get that guidance, to know what to allow in the house, what not to allow in the house. The Bnei Yissaschar writes in Derech Pikudachi, he says, a sefer of kfira inside the house as a din of tzoa, also less spal of a likros kriya shma kenegda. You're not allowed to even daven, face. And we have so much kfira that's going on here. So Teretz says, well, that also needs hadracha. What to allow, what not to allow. So you can have people, whether it's the influencers, whether it's a sport here. So what are parents supposed to do? The first thing is the parents have to get the hadracha. The parents have to give and turn and transmit that hadracha to their children, all within the context of Chanach Lan Arpi Darko, to let them know, put things into context. There's a time for sports. Sports might be a very good Yetzirah to have today. There's a time for music. But know that who are the real heroes? Who are the ones you're going to look up to? Who are the ones to get guidance from? Parents need to give their children the guidance, and many parents need to get that guidance as well, in terms of there's a place for sports, there's a place for hobbies and likes, there's a place for outlets and healthy outlets. What are healthy outlets? And if we put onto the table the sports and the music, but parents have to educate their children to know these could be great singers, and they are great singers. We have so many great singers, but they have to know there's a difference between singers who they have all these different levels, of their own struggles, but that's not who we get our Das Torah from. We don't get it from influencers who are doing podcasts. And there are a lot of perhaps a very positive, great podcasts going on all over. In the end of the day, the Das Torah and the Hadracha b'chol yom v'yom of how to live life as an emes Eved Hashem, that has to come from the role models as Eved Hashem. Yeah, I can have people come into the office and I say, and certain people struggling kfir, I say, in the end of the day, whatever questions you have in Yiddishkeit, and we'll tackle a lot of questions in Yiddishkeit, I give them a little tour around the room and I show them a Chazon Ish, Chaim Kanevsky, Rugged Shaver, Ramesh, whatever you want, Hasidish, Klozim Rebbe, how could you not love Rabbi Levin? And then, Gedolim all over. And at the end of the day, there's a Godol. They got the emes. They live the emes. So you don't have a shaykhus to them. So have a shaykhus to the Talmidim, or to the Talmidim of their Talmidim, or to this form, or to people at least who learned this form, who are living this form. Those have to be heroes. So parents have to educate their children to know, yes, this might be a healthy outlet. You know what? You could listen to this podcast. You could go ahead and watch this sports game. But your heroes are not the sports players. Your heroes are not necessarily the people doing the podcasts. They can be wonderful people. And obviously there's a big chiluk between Goyish sports players, or even now we have some Jewish sports players, or that's a separate discussion. I'll have to invite me back with Siyata Dishmaya, but you can have great podcasters. And you know what? You can have great musicians. And we have wonderful, wonderful singers. You go to Chassidus, we have great singers. Some of them are unbelievable, but that doesn't mean they're the ones to give us Hadrachas HaChaim. When Rabbeinu Yonah writes, in Mishlech of Zayin Chavalov, that Ish Lefei Mahalala, when Shlomo tells us, we teach of a person what he praises. You could teach the children as a time for sports, but put it into the right box, compartmentalize. There's a time for music. There's a time to play music. There's a time to listen to music. There's a time to go ahead and be interested, playing sports, watching sports, video, whatever it is. And that has to be done with the dracha. But who are the ones guiding us how to live life? It's the Gedolei Yisrael. So not everyone has a shaykhus, no problem. Get yourself a Rav. But the Rav's not in tune, so get yourself a Rav who understands you. Yes, it's better to have a young Rav who gets it, who knows what sports are, knows music, that the person can say, Yoshua wasn't as great as Moshe Rabbeinu. Bav Basra and Hey, Amr Ziknei Hadar, Pnei Moshe, Pnei Achama, Pnei Yeshua, Pnei Lavana. Yeshua was just mirroring. He's the echo of Moshe Rabbeinu. But why is he chosen? And he's chosen over Pinchas. In Parshas Pinchas, do smicha b'shnei yadayim and Yeshua. Why? Because he's Isha Ruach Po. He could be neged kol abrius. He's more from abrius. He can understand people. He can get people. Is he Moshe Rabbeinu? He's unbelievable. Yeshua, Gedolei. But he's not Moshe Rabbeinu. It doesn't have to be Moshe Rabbeinu. Every door. Rosh Hashanah Chavhei. The Gemara tells us, Yiftech b'doro k'Shmuel b'doro. Yiftech is not Shmuel. Moshe b'Aaron b'Chon b'Shmuel b'Korei Shemo. He's not Shmuel. He doesn't have to be. Yiftech has to be the one who understands his door, who gets his door. Said, Ruvain, Shimon, Levi, you don't need a Shmuel. You don't need to have your own Rabbi Yosef, Rav Chaim, Rav Aaron Levi. Find a Rebbe who at least learned their Svar, who at least has his own Shemesh, who at least has his own Rebbeim, was a yonik from his Rebbeim, and he understands you, and he gets you. In a Chanami, you got to find a Rav Rebbe, but people have to understand that if this person is dedicating his life to Avodas Hashem, to Lilmod Olamid, to Lishma Balasas, then he's got a certain connection. And hopefully, we daven that he's got a certain Siyata Dishmaya. Find the person who gets you, someone that you're comfortable with, that you got to open up to. And it's got to be a two-way street. 100%. The Rebbe who's too busy, who can't give the people time, then you got to find yourself another Rebbe. But I could tell you that I personally find that people really want it. They go after it. I tell people, be a nudge. And my Rebbe told me, be a nudge. And I went to Chaprain to walk him back after Shir, to drive him to the airport, to the train station. And I figured, I'm getting on his nerves. So what? We're even on Anitzala, right? So get in a book, because you got to push. So that's Asay L'charav. That's the var. Asay L'charav. Yeah. Kanei L'chachaber, a friend you could buy. You could buy. Take out a friend, give him a cappuccino every day. Take him out to a nice restaurant, you could buy that. A Rav you can't buy. But Asay L'charav. You got to make for yourself. But Asay L'cha. Go out proactively and get a Rebbe who understands you. When you do that, it eases the burden of life, because you have that clarity of the Rebbe takes achrayus. And I once asked my Rebbe a very important, life altering shaila, and I do my best never to question my Rebbe. And my Rebbe told me a certain answer, and I just had a stickle azus, to ask Rebbe. I'm not questioning chas v'shalom. I just want to know the beer. He said, Eytan, don't worry, that's my achrayus. I said, great. What a great way to live life. Our achrayus is Asay L'charav. Our achrayus is bracha zayin our base. Gedolei shimush shatar yosem limuda. That's our job. Go be mishamish to have a chacham. Go after Rav. Go after Rebbe. Make him yours, and then say, this is great. Whatever shilas I have, he's taking our achrayus. He ought to take achrayus, and he's going to take our achrayus. I could sleep much better at night. That's it. It's his decision. You get up to Shemaim after 120. Say, why'd you do that? Don't come to me. My Rebbe take achrayus for that. Who doesn't want to live life like that? What a great advantage. Asay L'charav. If there's one shtickle Torah, walk away. I tell people going into Shidduchim, coming back from Eretz Yisrael, the guys from Yeshiva, the girls from seminary, get a Rav, get a Rebbe. And if your Rebbe is in Eretz Yisrael Beseder, then call him as often as you can. Maintain that line. Keep up the communication.
I want to harp on a point that you were making, and it has to do with music. And I want to preface by giving credit to where credit is due, that is an organization, I think, founded in Farakaway called Thank You Hashem, which did tremendous, 5 towns. Tremendous work and injecting enthusiasm and joy into Yiddishkeit. So let's just get that out of the way. However, I think that questions need to be asked. If one organization dominates, and I use the word dominate with a capital D, dominates media, Jewish media, with a constant stream of pizzazz and loud and music and bumper stickers. And it's not rabbis, which is okay. It doesn't have to be rabbis. There's not a clear link between their Das Torah and them. And it's injecting a lot of joy. My question is, does it run the risk of dumbing down Judaism, where you have grown men who are singing and jumping and clapping to often meaningless songs, sometimes meaningful songs, often meaningless songs, and admittedly so meaningless? And the message could be taken by these sort of innocent youth consuming this, that this is what Yiddishkeit is. This is lechatchila, to jump and to clap and to sing and to dance and to have the right bumper stickers, and sort of the roll up your sleeves, hard work, tedious, technical aspects of Yiddishkeit, which is like 95% of Yiddishkeit, becomes increasingly less interesting. And let's focus on the 3% of the jumping and the clapping. Is this a problem, or making this up?
You're asking a fantastic question. And I hope everyone appreciates what Rabbi Eisenberg is doing, because these questions need to be asked. And so allow me to preface that when Rabbi Yitzchak tells us, Lamashal in Megillah Vavam Rebbeis, Agati Matzasi Tamen. So yes, the Gemara is talking about learning a Holach Kedudi, look Megir Sasiyatim Shemayahi. But it's not just about learning. It's about everything in life. There's a reason the Medrash Shmuel writes, how do we end the first 5 original prakim before they added the subsequent collection of brises called Perak and Yitzorah? How do we end? What's the siyum of the milsa? Aprakiyavas, Penhei says, Lafum Tzara Agra. No pain, no gain. We're in a world that people are looking for shortcuts, looking for the quick fix, the quick burst of inspiration. In the end of the day, anything meaningful, anything everlasting in life comes from hard work, comes from diligent, arduous, hard work, b'chol yom hayom, the daily struggles, the daily grind of being an Eytan Hashem in every single aspect of our life. No pain, no gain. But what we're in a society, you want to lose weight, just give yourself a shot, Ozempic, etc. Now again, I'm not, especially this is being videoed, if your doctor tells you should use Ozempic, Peseda, especially Chaman Atzlan, the diabetics, that's something to discuss with the doctor. But what's the var? There are no shortcuts in life. We want to become a Vilna Gaon, but we want to get a good night's sleep that night too. We want to lose weight, but we don't want to give up the prime rib. And we don't want to give up the sushi. We don't want to give up the strawberry shortcake. We want our cake and we want to eat it too, right? There are no shortcuts in life. First, I want to get close to Hashem. Torah is what? It's got to be built on the meat and potatoes. It's got to be built on the bread and butter. And the mashal, I happen to love Hasidic Sfarim. I happen to love Sfarim. But I love Hasidic Sfarim, the Shin of a Rebbe. The Divrei Yechesko, Rabbi Yechesko Shraga Haberstam, he writes in the back of the Sefer, and Likutim, he said, I gave you a great Sefer, great Hasidic Torah. And he writes in the back, just know that these are the paparos. Like the Gemara, like the Mishnah says at the end of the 3rd parak, was paparos la gematrias, the paparos la chachma. They're not the hors d'oeuvres, the appetite. They're not the meat and potatoes. Meat and potatoes is what you want. The entree. The entree is shas poskim. The entree is tefillah. The entree is to be a masmid. The entree is to work. Every single day is an Eytan Hashem, davening. Growing and steiging is an Eytan Hashem. So we need to go ahead and realize that to be an emistic Eytan Hashem, to be an El Chayid, takes work, real work. I sometimes give the mashal of a banana split. It's great when you have the ice cream and you have the bananas. Then you can throw on the whipped cream, throw on the chocolate sprinkles, throw on the cherry on top, the butterscotch chocolate topping. You can have all the toppings in the world. If you don't have the bananas and the ice cream, what's a banana split? So there are people that are looking for that from bringing the kumazits, late at night. There's the burst up. And again, I want to be very clear. Uman Rosh Hashanah, let's go to Rabbi Shaya. I'm all a big fan. I'm a big fan of Kivrei Avos. I'm a big fan of Kivrei Tzadikim. Many Makaras and Chazal. I'm a huge fan. They're all gewaldic, but don't build your Yiddishkeit on that. Yiddishkeit is built on Torah and Tefillah, on working day after day. It's a great tzushto, perhaps, Rabbi Yaakov Weinberg, Rashi Ben Esau used to say, a lot of people, we focus on Avram Avinu, the one who started out Yiddishkeit, focus on Kivshon Eish. Threw himself to the fire furnace, Givaldik. Akedas Yitzchak, let's fast forward to the end, gives up his son, and they are Givaldik, and they sign Akedas. He says, you know what to him is the greatest Nisayan, Lech Lecha. And Lamaisa, the Rambam doesn't even mention Kivshon Eish. The Rambam in Perush Mishnayos and Abbas, Parakemish Negimah, Sonas Yonas Asas, Avram Avinu. First one, Rambam says, how does the Torah introduce Avram Avinu? He is Lech Lecha. Now, you know what? The day to day. I left my parents, I left my family, I left everything behind, that sacrifice, that every day the rest of his life. I left my homeland, I left my family, day to day to be an Eved Hashem, Lech Lecha, just go. Where's he going? It doesn't make an afkamina. We're to be what? Navi Sachaya, Gimel Zayin, Asati Lecha Malichim, be a holech. The Gra Mishlei, Tesvav Chavdala, just keep going and keep starting. Where are you going? Vayelech Moshe, where's he going? It doesn't make an afkamina. Abraham Avinu is a Lech Lecha, he's a holech, he's on the move, he's on the go. Vayelech Moshe, you got to be growing. So what? I'll do what I do in life. I'll listen to this nice song before I go to sleep, and I don't jump, I'll clap, happy, clapping, and it's all great, and I'm all for it. Church says, what? Everything's got to be at the right time, in the right place, in the right measure. And it all goes back to having the Rav, having the Rebbe, but don't build the Yiddishkeit on these things. It's building a banana split, starting with whipped creams and cherries and colored sprinkles, butterscotch, chocolate. It's geschmack, it's tasty, it's sweet, but it's not a banana split. The ikar, it's being mahapech, the ikar and the tafel. It's the same way you have people, even when it comes to Svarim, and people fall in love with certain Hasidish Svarim, and it's all great. Kabbalah, Torah, and it's geschmack. But as Rav Ober and all, don't be mahapech the Seder. You can't just plunge into the depths, the profundity of Kabbalah. There's a system in place. So it's got to be what? There's a reason it's parties, pshat, remes, drusot. There's a reason it's got to start with what? With Mikra, with Chumash, and then you ascend, you go to Mishnah, and then you go Mishnah and Abbas, Heichaf Aleph ben Chumash Mikra, and then you go to Mishnah, and then you go to Gemara Talmud, and then you go to Rishonim, and then you go to Achron, and you keep growing. And then you get to deeper chalakim of Torah, and you can get to Torah Sanistar at the right time and the right place. But don't be B'habech the Seder. It's the same way I tell people. People ask Rabbi Feiner, what do you hold about going to Uman Rosh Hashanah? I said, don't ask me. Ask their wives what they hold about their husbands going. You know, there was the old joke about the husband who said to his wife that, hey, I'm going to Uman Rosh Hashanah. She says, okay, daven for a new shidduch. You know, so ask their wives about it. But the Torah says, well, I tell them, if it does good for you, then avada go. If you have an emistic inspiration, and you like going to Kavarim, and you like traveling and leaving and going to Gavaldige Kibbutz Tzadikim in Europe and on the yard sites, think about it. Spice up your Yiddishkeit. You want the Thursday night kumsitz with the cholent potato gogol. You want the Motzei Shabbos Geschmack Malvamalka with the Leibedika dancing. You want a happy club. Whatever works for Yiddishkeit, be the biggest, best, and greatest Eved Hashem. But don't define your Yiddishkeit by the clapping and the dancing and the music. It's Gavaldige Sache. It's Meredek. And it's ways to round a person out, to take an Adam Sholem and enhance all the aspects of a person's personality and all they need to strive and steig is in a mystic Eved Hashem. But don't build your Yiddishkeit. Yiddishkeit has to be built on the hard day-to-day of minyan 3 times a day. Shachris, Mincha, Maariv, of Koach of Tehillim, of steiging a morning, of Gemara, Rashi, Taisus, Shas, Bos, it's not for everyone, and women of their own chayil, but Torah says what? Whatever you're doing, just know it's got to be built on Torah and Tefillah.
So can I pause for 1 second? Could it be that there's
this
an
is
additional...
a topic I love to speak about for hours.
Yes.
Rabbi.
There's an additional... What the Rav is describing is these are innocent and good perhaps, but not the Iker. I want to read to the Rav, perhaps I'm sure he knows, the single most popular song of the last year. The single number 1. It's called Yum Yum, and these are the lyrics. You can bring a horse to a farbringen. You can also make it drink. Clink, 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 clink. Fishy, swishy, yum, yum, yum. Sudas halivyasan, yum, yum. And so when asked what the meaning of these words were, the individuals who created it answered, there is no meaning. There's no meaning to these words. It's just meaningless, fun, cute words. So I don't want to, fry a small fish in a giant frying pan, but is this a bad thing where we're just sort of slapping authenticity in the face, where we're just the number 1 song in all of Klal Yisrael is a meaningless song, and as long as from people with beards, many of whom daven in the shul next door or down the street, you see them, so therefore it's okay and it's harmless. Is it harmless, or is it sort of saying authenticity is dead and just do whatever is fun and exciting?
So I'm going to leave, comments about certain specific songs and or groups, composers, etc. I'm going to leave that up to Gedolei Yisrael for the Chavaz Das, in that regard. But I will say that people have to understand the chachma of music, of niggin, is so profound, is so deep. There's an apocryphal story that the Chassam Sofer said, I would give up ad chatzi amalchus to plumb the depths of chachmas and niggin. The Hagdamah Rabbi Yisrael Meshkolav's Pasha Shulchan, quoting his Rebbe the Gra, said that Moshe Rabbeinu was given the Mafteach of Tchias HaMesim, and that was encrypted, encoded in Chochmas HaMuzika. And the Gra was marach about the amazing powers of music. There's a Tikkun Zohar and Tikkun Yud Aleph, the Mavar Yabak talks. There are certain heicholas in the Olam Hazon you could only enter derech the koach hanigin, derech the koach of music. Tchias HaMesim. Here we are, Pashas B'Shalach, Chaz Yoshe Moshe, Sanhedrin Tari Aleph and Beis, V'meir Omer Minayin, the Tchias HaMesim in HaTorah. Shenamar Az Yoshe Moshe, Shalom Ela Yoshe. We're talking about Tchias HaMesim. We're talking about big things. We're talking about the Eytan. There's a great story. The Gra lived 1720, 1798. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, the famous composer, the renowned child prodigy. So he lived 1761 to 1797. There's an apocryphal story that the Gra, one of his personal goyos, met up with Mozart, and they were talking music. And there are 7 octaves, 7 notes in musical scale. And the Gra, Api Kabbalah, and there are a lot of secrets of Kabbalah you could tap into, right? It's the Hon Ashir. By the Baal Mishnas Chachamim and the third parak of Yuma, there's certain levels you could tap into Al Pi Kabbalah and certain depths of sod that you could only grasp Al Yidei Chachmas and Niggin. And the Gra sang for Mozart the 8th note Al Pi Kabbalah, and Mozart fainted on the spot. So is it true as Chvesis? I don't know if it's, but the word is what? 8th note. The Ramban writes in Balais Laches Kafhei, the Ikra Avodas Alabim was with the Shir. Zohar and Vayikra, the Ritzui of Kabbanis, was only attained when the Hakrobas HaKabbanis idea of the Kohanim was accompanied by Shiras Alaviyah. Shira is a big thing. Zimra is a big thing. So I say to people all the time, this is Heilig and Yonim. These are holy things. You could tap into powers of Tchias HaMesim. No coincidence so many people the world over wake up every morning to music. It's Mein of Tchias HaMesim. That's why we wake up to music. It speaks to the neshama. It hits the neshama. So what are we hitting the neshama with? How can we take something so holy, so heilig? How can we bring it down? Again, there's a time to have fun. There's a time to, and if people need it to enhance their Yiddishkeit, put it as a cherry on top. But people have to know what's real, authentic music. David HaMelech's Tehillim. We have Heilig Chassidish Rebbes. We have Heilig music that's been going on for decades. That's Heilig, that's coming me Mamake Halev, that has depth, that has meaning. When you're talking about Pesukim, we're not getting into David, Zmiris and the different Chazals, but we have many people who have taken Pesukim, who have brought out certain Rigshay Lev from the Alkos of David HaMelech's Tehillim. Let's go to the composer of all composers, David HaMelech, and these are words that speak to the heart. This is what's real. So if people say, well, I get an inspiration from, I'm not here to stop anyone from getting inspiration. I want everyone to be inspired. I want everyone to be happy in Yiddishkeit. And again, if this music does it for you, but let's just put things into the right perspective. Let's not cheapen the depth, the spiritual profundity of what Chochmas HaNiggin, what Chochmas HaMuzika is all about. So people have to understand. If parents come to speak to me, I'll tell them, if your son likes this song, I have no idea what the words mean. I don't know what the words mean. This music doesn't do it for me. But if this music does it, so what does it do for your son? If this is going to fill the void because he wants to listen to English music, much better listen to this than regular English music. Again, I'm not mentioning any specific songs, any specific bands, but whatever people need. Different people need different things to spice up the Yiddishkeit, to enhance the Yiddishkeit.
But at what point does it become like not an excuse anymore where, hey, it's better than the alternative? Well, I mean,
so again, it's case specific, meaning there are people that I speak with where I might not hold of certain types of songs, certain type of music, but if I know this is what this person needs, I might not hold that a regular Ben Torah should be watching sports, but it might be what this person needs. This person might need as an outlet to martial arts. This person might need to go out and join a basketball, a team, a tournament, etc. Especially today. In other words, we have so many vices in society and so many horrors that are so rampant, pervasive throughout society that I humbly believe any time, as Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky used to say, when you're paskening a shaila, whether it's halachic or hashkafic, 50% of the shaila is the shoel. Who's asking the question? So objectively speaking, is this the gross chachmas hamuzika l'sam seibers to'achanigan? I think we all know that they're talking about higher planes. They're talking about nafti or music, etc. Teretz is what? But if somebody needs an outlet, someone needs to dance, they need to release energy, they need that cathartic process of just getting up and jumping, and they're looking for outlets. And the healthiest outlet is to have beautiful Baruch Hashem, Erlich Hayidim. For example, you mentioned thank you Hashem. Thank you Hashem. I'm all for, let's get into thank you Hashem. But again, the right perspective, the right compartment. And knowing what role it plays, and knowing who needs it and who doesn't need it. But parents, rebbeim, moras, they have to always put in extra time and energy to educating in the right mahalech, the perspective of what's real, authentic music, what's real, authentic hisayristic music. Rav Shmuel Brazil, famed composer of Vachole, and he has so many great nigunim. I once asked him, how come he doesn't do these concerts? He doesn't do concerts, Vachole, strobe lights and the lights and the smoke. Again, this doesn't do it for me, but I know a lot of people, this is what they need. So I asked him, he said his Rebbe, his Rosh Hashiva, or Shlomo Feifeld, Zechat Lebracha, told him, that's what the Goyim do. They do the concerts with the smoke and the strobe lights and the fires and this. He says, that's not you. That's not you, and he doesn't do it. Now, again, but this is what a lot of segments in society today need. Now, does that make it, is this the emes? That's not the question. The question is, kol echad lefi darko, kol echad, it's kefi minig hamokum minig hazman. And there are different people in each generation that need different types of things. So if somebody came to ask me, I'd say, so do you understand what role this is playing in your life? Is this music? Do you really need this? Do you not? But if they need it, and they need to have that outlet, and they need to jump and clap and think of, if that's what they need, then Beseder, but understand the hierarchy, understand the totem pole of what's the real Chochmas HaNigan, the real Chochmas HaMuzika. How many people, when you have Kishmak and Nigan B'Shas Ne'ilah on Yom Kippur, and then what happens? And there's the right Nigan. And a person, a lot of times again in Kedusha, what happens? You have a great Chazan Bel Tefillah, and he puts a great Kishmaka, a contemporary Nigan, and instead of thinking about the words of Kedusha, you're thinking about the words of the Nigan, right? So you're singing even great songs. You're thinking, now, right? You see, you're not thinking Mimkom. You're thinking Psach Sheisha, which is one of my favorites. Psach Sheisha, but you got to think about the words of Kedusha right now. So I'll give you a Ledugma, Ney Yisrael Talmud. Speaking to a Gevaldik Ney Yisrael Talmud. So the story always was with Deborah Kronglas, Talmud Muvak of Rav Yerucham, when he came over from the Mir to Ney Yisrael, and the Bachram, they started singing Lebedik L'chododi, Friday night, Kabbalah Shabbos, which is so nafat, so widespread and prevalent today. And he came in, he said, went over to Rav Yerucham, what's with all the singing? What's with? Rav Yerucham said, I agree, Talmud Rav Yerucham, I understand Rav David, but this is what the boys need today. This is what the boys need today. So Teretz says, no, I always tell people, it's case specific. If you don't need this music, let's go to other. But if this music does something for you and enhances your Yiddishkeit, but that's the question a person has to ask. What role is it playing in as me becoming the biggest and best Eved Hashem that I can?
So what happens if the music is not lukewarm, innocent? I'll give an example. You could pass. You don't have to talk about it. A singer named Matisyahu was featured by
Rabbi Eisenberg, why this is Judaism without apology.
Right, correct. There's a singer named Matisyahu who was featured by Thank You Hashem, who sang recently a song called Spread Light. The words are spread light, spread love around the world. Those are the exact words. That might not be an innocent song. I mean, here's a person who admittedly left authentic Judaism, extremely publicly sort of spat on authentic Judaism, shaved his beard, threw his yarmulke on the ground, does not eat kosher, is not authentic Jewish, in admittedly so in a very, very, very public way. He is featured on the largest Jewish platform singing a song called Spread Light and Spread Love. How is a parent supposed to explain this to their innocent 11-year-old singing this song and watching him, Matisyahu, sing this song? Like, the messaging here is very complicated and nuanced, and it's not just an innocent, listen, this is what they need, this is, Asher Usham. This is like, he's saying spread light. What does that mean? Meaning spread whatever version of light you want. You could spit on the Torah and leave authentic Judaism, and it's fine as long as you spread light and love, whatever that means. Like, that's not just a lukewarm song. That is potentially dangerous hashkafa that's being absorbed subliminally into children.
It's a very valid and an important point. So again, I'm not here to judge any specific yid. I don't know much about Matisyahu. I know some general details about his journey. I don't know where he's holding now, and certainly, again, Eytan is called I don't know his current level of Yiddishkeit, but putting any names aside, anyone who doesn't represent authentic Judaism, anyone who is not publicly, if the public perception is this person is not a frum Yid, then we should not be featuring him. That is not a message. Now, again, as much as, again, we would down the council, I would assume, I would hope that there's a Das Torah involved in anyone who would bring someone who is not representative of frum, authentic Yiddishkeit to play any role in these songs or anything of that nature, especially when children, young adults are listening to this on a regular basis. There's a shaila that needs to be asked. That's a very important shaila. 100% in terms of, and people have to understand, going back to the depths of music, we talk about music and the composition music. These are things that penetrate into the recesses of a person's neshama. They have tremendous koach, and they have tremendous hashpah. And we get influenced not only by the words, by the lyrics themselves, we get influenced by the leiv nefesh, the regesh, that goes from the composer, from the one playing it, into us. So a person has to be very, very careful. And then you have the larger question of who is representing to us. And pour the messages, spread the light. You're right, what are we talking about? We're talking about the Or Torah, the Or of Yiddishkeit, etc. That can only be spread by people who live lives that are authentic to Moshe Emes and Torah Emes, to a genuine, authentic Torah lifestyle. So, and that's a very valid, a very important question, and that's something that we would hope that any group that takes in anyone, we could talk about, we always want to be Makariv the Lavavas, and we want to be Makariv Chokim. So there are ways to do it. There's a time and a place, but that doesn't mean we feature people who are not representative, who are not Shomer Torah Mitzvahs, whoever those people are. We can't let people know that's who we're going to get these messages from. Torah's got to be authentic, and Shira and Zimra, we have to be so careful not to cheapen it and not to sully it, not to tarnish it. There's a great Murkacha Rebbe, the Minchas Elazar, in his Sefer Divrei Torah, and the sixth Madur and Chelik Vav and Os Ayin. So he cites his Alta Zaidi. He says a great part. He says, Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha bo lefana b'ernana. So he says, my Alta Zaidi, he's Dr. Minchas Elazar, asked Akasha, why is it Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha bo lefana? Let's go lefana b'ernana. So based on an Alshach at the beginning of his parish, and Pragyavas, he says like this. He says, you know what Shira and Zimra is? Shira, why do we call song, music, Shira? Here we are, as Yashir Maisha. Shira Sayam, Lamashim Yadi Dioma. Why is it called Shira? Gevalda Gavard, he says Shira is Lashon Shiraya. There's so much bursting inside, so much spirituality that's bursting and inundating your neshama. You can't harness it any longer. You can no longer contain it. So what does it do? It's the shirayim. You go to Chassidus to Tish. And at the Tish, you eat the shirayim. Shira is the Shira's what? Zimra, the same like Chassidus is for my Zomer. You're pruning yourself, you're getting out of the klipas and the kochas atumim, but Shira is the shirayim of the nesham. There's so much that's bursting. You're feeling such a gevaldik yesayra, such a geschmack. You can't contain it any longer inside. What does it do? It breaks through the barriers, and it's the shirayim of the neshama. And that's why you can't hold back anymore. That's why, parenthetically, you get it. Some people are very funny when they sing, right? Because you can't control it, because singing is so authentic. It's the pneumius of the neshama coming through. That's Shira Zimra. So he says, everybody has to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'simcha. That's David Melech, Kapitel Kov, Pasuk Beis. Idus Hashem Simcha, Tochacha comes, Pashas Kisavo, Tachas Shol Havashon Lekacha, B'simcha B'tolevim. You got to have simcha. That's the basic. That's the bare minimum. But Bo Lefanov, if you want to get close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you want to go inside, Lefnai V'Lefnim, Bo Lefanov, that's got to be Bernana. You can't hold back. Just let it go. Let the shirayim burst forth. That's Bernona. You got to sing it. You can't just be margish the simcha and contain it in the pneumius levin in a recess. You got to let it go. Singing is so powerful, and we know what's powerful. We know how many people will turn on to Yiddishkeit because of the right song. The right comes, it's the right niggin. I'm a big fan. Comes, it's at the right time and place. For bringing the right time and place. Singing of all the Yidden sitting together and befrat klaiso as a chaburo and singing, and when it's the right words and the right lyrics, this is Haluk Shabbat. It's gewaldet, but the right time and the right place and the right words and the right people leading it. Baruch Hashem, we have wonderful people today. We're not going to get into names for Hule, but we have great composers and we have great, going back, decades. We have great Nagudim, but a person has to be so careful. Who are the personalities behind the Nagudim? Who's getting up on that stage? Because it's so powerful and there's such a connection to the singer that a person has to know when educating his children, when educating himself. Who are going to be the role models? And this person is not just giving off the actual lyrics that come out, they're giving off so much of their panemius. So much of their panemius is coming through. Whether you like it or not, there's a connection, there's hashpah. Anytime we speak, there's an automatic, innate connection that's going on. When it's singing and there's so much panemius coming through, you got to be on guard. One svara, for example, kol isha. So a woman once asked me, she said to me, Rabbi Feiner, I'm not attractive. I'm very obese. I'm not attractive. Why does anyone care about my son? I said, because so-and-so. Because when you sing, it comes from your beautiful, unbelievable, special neshama. And it's such a burst, so quick, so much of your beautiful panemius that it could be very seductive and it could be very dangerous. It's got to be something singing that's reserved for your husband, Kol B'isha Erva, because it's so powerful. So who's representing that? Whose panemius do we want to share? Whose neshama do we want to connect to? Who are going to be the people that are going to give her the message? And what are the message? These are major important questions, and this has to be navigated. And the first part of that is knowing. Listen to Judaism without apologizing and knowing it's a question. Oh, but it's Jewish. It's coming. Who are the people on the stage? Who are the people giving me the Dvar Yaitzu and Alev? Whose panemius do I want to connect to? And who are going to be the heroes? Who's going to give me my dastara? So there's a time and a place, but it's got to be without drach. It's got to be like everything in life. It's got to be, everyone has to know, what do I need now at this stage of my life? We don't have to become the Vilna Gaon, the Chavetz Chaim, or the Kiveger overnight. But we got to be in a journey. As Rafai Maxman says, you got to shoot for the stars. If you shoot for the stars and you miss, actually you'll end up on the sun, you'll end up on the moon. But if you're only shooting for the moon and you miss, you're in big trouble. So shoot for the stars. We want to become a Chavetz Chaim, a Gra, a Kiveger, a Moshe Feinstein, a Baron Calder. We want to be Ritziberg. We want to be our Gedolim. But we might not get there. But that's where our shifas are. So we have to know, anytime we're listening to people and they're making us bad, it could likely be bringing us down. So there's time a person says, I need that, pick me up, listen to that song. Okay, is it the right time, the right place, the right measure? A lot of these things are addictive. And I have people coming to me with shilos and they go into their kid's bedroom and the kid's listening 4, 5, 6 hours a night. And, yes, is it much better than Rahman on YouTube and TikTok, Dvarim that are mamish, could be as Isur Chamurim? Yes. But a person has to know it doesn't make it right, that you should just listen to the right measure. Like everything in life. It's about what? It's about, the Gra says in Ezekiel, res and piv v'tavaso. Life is about self-discipline. It's about control. It's about, we don't eat everything the guy eats, and we don't go to all the places. And you know what? We don't listen to all their music. We get out of Mitzrayim, Chazal say, different than Rosh Chazal, Medrash Rabbah, Yalkut, Loshinu, Shemamis, Lashem, Yisma, Moshe. The Gra says, you want to be safe from Mechemes Gog and Magog? Anyone who's an Erlachiyad is going to be saved. What's an Erlachiyad? We have a Messiah, Rachatzkel Abramsky, Rav Stomberg writes into this one, Huggis from Rachatzkel Abramsky, and Ramanda Bauman, page 34, Matzmiach Yeshua, we have a Messiah going back, Rav Nosmeir Vachbel going back. To Rav Chanan, Tamabug, the Chavetz Chaim, Hashem the Gra, Hamarel, Diskin people. What's an Erlachiyad? Someone who's proud to be a Jew. What does it mean, proud to be a Jew? I walk like a Yid. I talk like a Yid. I dress like a Yid. I'm proud of my Yiddish name. I'm proud of my Yiddish clothing. I'm proud to be different. Well, more Rabbi, just like we eat differently, we don't need to eat everything the Goyim do. And we don't need to listen to all the music. And we can't just take the music and make it kosher and say, oh, let's put a ganig into it, let's go make it kosher. But there's a time and a place. If I could share a personal story, I try sometimes in yard sites of Gedolei Yisrael, I try to share something from this farm. So years ago, I think it was the first yard site, Haravaji Yosef. So I said between Mechamarav, I said a shir. I took a shtickle from Yechav Das. It was Chelik based in Yechav Das and Simon Hay, and he talks based on the Chidah and other Gedolei HaPoskim can take a Goyish Niggin. Now, we're not talking about Goyish Niggin that has any lewd or erotic messaging or lewd, improper and really usher lyrics. We're talking about, let's say, just taking Goyish music. Goyish music. I take in the Goyish music and I put it to Yiddish words, and can I be Makadish it? And we know we've had different groups that made a whole business out of it. Can you take the guest? And that was his shaila. And he says, as long as it's not, the love songs, etc., as long as it's just taking basic niggin, you could be Makadish it. You be Makadish it. You could bring it into the genre of Jewish music if you put good words to it, as long as, again, it's not something that conjures up anything that's inappropriate, that's awesome. So I said over the tshuva, and maybe I added a little bit to it in the midst of this year, and I get called from a friend of mine, a Geshmaka, an old chaver from the Yisrael days, Geshmaka Yid. shtickle kanoi at times. And he calls me up and he says, Rabbi Eytan, I know you're the Rav of the White Swan. I know people listening at Torah anytime to the Shir. Maybe it wasn't such a good thing to say the Shir because, you're telling people, this guy's going to listen. We were schmoozing back when we were growing up. It was Billy Joel, Elton John, Chicago. It was real music, not like, what the guy we're listening today. And as Fran says, but once you're speaking out such a truth, then people are going to think I can listen to English music and I can take English music and you're making it kosher, you're making it l'chachila. And he left me a long message on my voicemail about, I don't, b'machila, but I don't think, Rabbi Eytan, I don't think you should say, chuvas like that in public, etc. So, true story. Before I had a chance to call back this old friend from yeshiva days, I get a call from someone I hadn't seen nor heard from in years. I was a learning Rebbe in Camp Chaverim outside of Baltimore many, many years ago, decades ago. And I taught the top share of teenagers, but the top share of them meant the oldest kids, the ones who were the most rowdy. In the summertime, they were not so interested in learning. And one guy, a schmuck guy, but he couldn't really sit so well. So I developed a beautiful kasha with him. Just saw him recently also, beautiful. He ate over when I was in the mirror. Now he ate over in the house. So he had a nice kasha with him. He calls me up that day. He says, Rabbi Feiner, we'll just call him Ruvain. He says, I'm sorry that I haven't called you in the last 15 to 20 years, whatever it was when I said this. He says, but just today you said over in Torah anytime, and you quoted this tshuva. He says, when I was in Camp Chaverim, and we were learning, and I remember you told me over that same tshuva, and you quoted Billy Joel and Elton John and said, can you take one of their best songs? Can you take Piano Man by Billy Joel? Can you take it, and you'll take, Hebrew words and make it, gishmak, etc. And he was speaking about that, and I said, wow, this is so fun. And I was so fascinated by discussions like that. You should know that summer, I wanted to give up Yiddishkeit. I was going off the derech teenager. And my parents said, just try out one last summer in a frum boys camp. And I went, and you were my learning Rebbe. And that day's shir changed my whole summer. And then I said, he can relate to me. And I related and connected to him. He says, and because of that, I stayed from. In the end of the day, this guy went to the mirror. And this guy now is a chashuv balabas in out-of-town city. He's a chashuv, beautiful balabas. And he said, I never thanked you. I said, but now that you mentioned that shir, and I heard that tshuva again, it reminded me, let me call up another thing. So I call up that friend of Baltimore, and I say, so-and-so. I say, Shimon. Let's just call him Shimon. I said, Shimon, before we get to your Shiloh, let me just tell you a story that the Eibishter sent my way today. He says, okay, I'll take it. Terrence says, well, for some people, they need to hear about the Billy Joel. There's some people that need to hear certain shuvas. It doesn't mean it's for everyone. It's not for the guy in brisk in the mirror necessarily. You're sitting and Shtagi doesn't. So it's the same thing. When we talk about different types of songs today, etc. Don't make your Iker Hesiris that I'm going to get it out of fluffy, light, sometimes meaningless songs. Look for the real Hesiris from the day-to-day grind of an Evan Hashem as the pshat that every day I wake up in the morning like Rachatzkel Abramsky said. And the first question I ask myself is, what does the Eibishter want from me today? How can I become the biggest, best, greatest Evan Hashem? I said over once that one of the main reasons I love the fact that my Rebbe is my Rebbe, Tzvi Berkowitz. Somebody came over to me once in Camp Simcha Chalav Lanskin, and he told me that his son was in a summer program on the Neisol campus, and they had a Q&A with Tzvi Berkowitz, Lita. Ramoni Varabi. And he said to me that his son was a more modern 15-year-old kid, and they had Q&A with Hagon and Nifla with Tzvi Berkowitz. And he told me that the Madrich told him afterwards that says, so-and-so, your son, after they had the brief words of Chizuk, they had a Q&A. And he raises his hand, he says, Rabbi Berkowitz, can I ask you a question? Can I ask the Rav? Can I ask you a question? He says, sure. He says, what makes Rabbi Berkowitz tick? That's what this 15-year-old boy says. What makes Rabbi Berkowitz tick? And right away he answered. And this came from the father, who heard it directly from the Madrich. He says, Rabbi Berkowitz answered him. I get up every morning, and I ask myself every single morning, how can I become the biggest, the best, and greatest Evan Hashem that I could be? How could I give Nachas Ruach to the Borei Olam today? And then the boy said, Rabbi Berkowitz, how often throughout the day do you think of that? And he said, every second of every day. That's an Evan Hashem.
Wow.
So it is so much of what we do in life. Goes to what the Chavetz Chaim writes about the Kama Tuchti in a number of places, bandied about his farm, is that so many people living without a cheshbon. We just eat whatever we want. The meat platters and the sushi platters and the alcohol, and we just listen to whatever music. What do you mean? It's Jewish people. He's Jewish. He is this. Are we living with a cheshbon? Are we thinking about what we're eating, how much we're eating? Are we thinking about what we're listening to? How much we're listening to? You think it's not making us, but everything we eat has hashpah. Everything we listen to has a major hashpah. Church is what? There's nothing that's small. These are big things. And they're all big things. And people need to listen to Jews, right? Judaism without apologizing. The people have to know these are shilas. These are real questions. And that's the first step. And the church is what? It all comes down to the beginning. Get yourself a Rav. Get yourself a Rebbe. Oh, there's a dearth. There's a lack. There isn't a lack. Church is what? There's no dar. Yiftach was, he was a warrior. He was a chashav warrior. Is that it? Church is, Abishter says, Yiftach is the address. And a person is in the 5 towns, and they're in Muncie, they're in Queens or Lakewood, Baltimore, whatever they say. Find someone. It doesn't have to be Rochaya Kanevsky. It doesn't have to be Rabbi Yosef. It doesn't have to be Rapah. Just to be a Rebbe that you respect, that's going to learn you, that's going to get you, that's going to be interested in you, that's going to be interested in wanting you to be the best and greatest of Hashem, that wants nothing more, that you should get up every single morning and say to yourself, okay, what music does Hashem want me to listen to today? What does he want me to eat today? What are the friends that he wants me to have? What activities should I be involved in? We have a lot of these issues. We have from Erlicha people, right? Suppose that are going to beaches, that are going to certain places on vacation. All of a sudden, we could dress differently on vacation. Yeah, put on the shorts, put on the jeans, sneakers, baseball cap. These are shilas. These are shilas. What gives me a nachas ruch when a Talmud Mike calls me up and says, Rebbe, am I allowed to go to this and this place for vacation? Oh, and Rebbe, besides the Pritzah shilah, I don't know if I'll have a minyan 3 times a day. I don't know if I'll have a minyan at all. Are you allowed to go to such? These are shilas. These are real shilas. Get a Rav, get a Rebbe. We're Yidden. We have to understand, we don't go to every place the Goyim go. And we don't listen to every type of music. And we don't eat every type of food. Live with a cheshbon. Live with hajarocha. It's the healthiest, and it's going to bring inner peace. It's going to bring yeshivat das, menuchas hanefesh, which is what every single person and Yiddishkeit the world over is seeking. What are we in pursuit of? In the end of the day, we know wealth doesn't make people happy. The charter jets, the flights, the vacations, the Pesach hotels, and the sushi meat platters, and all the alcohol, cigars, that doesn't make people happy. Ezu asher smech mechelka. What's the vote? Rav Oba says, smech mechelka isn't hestapkus mamuat. I want more, but I'm content. That's its own meat. It's a Gavaldik Gemaita. That's hestapkus mamuat. Smech mechelka is just that. You're sameach. You enjoy you got a beat up 67 Chevy, and it's got bruises all over it. And then you're not looking for, you don't need the SUV Tesla. You don't need the Lexus. You're happy. You enjoy what Hashem gave you. If you needed something more, Hashem will give you something more. So we have so much great music, so many great words, great lyrics. Why do we need to go to people who don't represent Yiddishkeit? Why do we need to sing songs together with people who are not openly, outwardly from? Now, it doesn't mean there's not a time for it. We could go ahead and have a setup, have a platform. If we're doing Kiruv Rechokim and we ask the Shilas, and we can know there's a time and a place. But if we're going to advertise, this is Yiddishkeit, this is Jewish music today. This is a concert, this is a song that's going to hit tens of thousands of impressionable young kids, boys, girls, etc. Who's representing Yiddishkeit to them? Don't let the heroes, don't let the pictures on the wall, Ishlafim Halalo, don't let it be those musicians, those who are not representing authentic, genuine Yiddishkeit. Don't let it be the sports players. So certain kids need to go to a ball game. I'm not going to get into Ramesh's Tshuva Cheleches and Chukasaka, but Moshe Leitza. It's a Shiloh. That means what? There's a time perhaps for a father to take his son to a baseball game. Doesn't mean he's supposed to have season tickets. Doesn't mean he has the sports heroes plastered all over his wall in his bedroom. Who should be on the walls of the bedroom? That's part of what the rebellion, that's part of what the parents did. Who's on the walls of the bedroom? Gedolei Yisrael. Those are the ones adorning your walls. But there's a time. You got to have an outlet.
In conclusion, the number, I put out a poll. I told some people that I was interviewing you, and the number one overwhelming question that I got was, I learned in Kail, I was in seminary, I was in yeshiva, and now I'm working, and I don't want to be that guy that just gets swept up and floats for the rest of my life because I don't have time. What is the practical Eytan to give such people who desperately want to stay on fire, but often struggle to do so? What would be a mentality perspective that you can give them to stay on fire?
It's another great question. And again, so much of it is case specific, that it's a question of finding that right person who knows that individual, what he or she needs to stay on fire. But they're asking a great question because Hashem wants us to stay on fire. We got to be passionate about our Yiddishkeit. We have to have an impassioned verve and dynamism for every chelik of Avodas Hashem. The famous Quran, Mishlei Tesvav Chavdalit, if you're not going up in Yiddishkeit, you're going down. There's no such thing as, I did my years in Israel in seminary, let me just maintain status quo. There's no status quo. If you're not going up, then Baal Korchach, you're going down. Got to be steiging. Always got to be on fire. What was the simon that the Shechina was Shayra, Shabbos, Chav Gimon? Yeah, the menorah, Eish on the Mizbeach, Eish on the menorah. Yiddishkeit is Eish. Haya base Yaakov le'Eish. Avadja Aleph Yeches. You got to be on fire. Tells us what different people need different things to keep on fire. But the tzad hashav is, we always have to be working on a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We have to get up every morning and go to sleep every night. Tell ourselves the Eibishter loves us more than we could ever imagine. Way more than your spouse and then your parents love you, than your kids love you. The Eibishter loves us billions, immeasurable times more. And the Eibishter wants us to reciprocate that love. But when it comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we have a dual relationship. There's Ava, there's Yira, etc. We have to be working on the Chelkei Ha'ava, Chelkei Ha'yira. And we have to be on fire. We got to be passionate. Tarot says what? There's no one recipe. There's no one solution for every single person. But we got to find that person who to us is on fire. I'd say, tell us, how do you do it? Ramchal in the beginning of Association. You want to get out of the maze. And in the larger sense, the maze of life. The core mazes, right? So go to the people that navigated the maze. Go to the people that made it out of the maze. And ask them how they did it. Church says, go find people who are on fire. And say, Rebbe, Mora, how do you do it? How do you do it? How do you stay on fire every day? And people think Gedolei Yisrael don't have the struggles. They have the struggles. Yes, Rav Shach came to Varakal. He says, I'm going through a Yerida. I'm only learning 17, 18 hours a day instead of, 22. Kol echad kefi darko, kol echad kefi madregaso. But everybody, the Stipler talks about this throughout his letters, crying to Digrasa. Everyone has Elias and Yeridas. I go to the people that are on fire and say, Rebbe, Rav, Rosh Hashiva, Mora, how do you do it? Tell me. But it's so personalized. For this person, I might say, listen to this type of music. For this person, I might say, learn this type of sefer. Learn this mitzvah and Torah v'chole. This is what he needs. This is what she needs. Go to this kever v'chole. Go. Everyone's got their own derech. Everyone's got asaliko, tzarki, whatever they need to become the biggest, greatest Eben Hashem. But stay on fire. Stay passionate. And the first step is, you got to want it. You got to want it. Rotza. Rav Oba says in Ali Shur Chelek Beis, why do we call it Rotza? Because it's Milosh and Rotz. You run in the direction of your Rotza. So what are your Rotzinus? What do you really want in life? Find people who have what you're looking for. Go to them. Speak to them. Follow them around. Call them. Email them. Text them. Nudge them. Drive them crazy at hasanas. But just say, I need Ha'joach and Avodas Hashem. I got to stay on fire. So a person could come to me and I said, the search isn't over. We're still writing the pages of the book. There's no such thing as a person who says, well, I went through all these forms, all these halakim and Torah, I did all the music, that doesn't do it for me. Let's find something that does it for you. There's something in Yiddishkeit for everybody. And that gets back to really how we started this discussion, that once you have that Rebbe, that Rav, there are some people, yes, Uman Rosh Hashanah is the right thing to do. And this comes, it's even B'kfiyas every Thursday night, or this Farbregan Motzei Shabbos is the right thing to do. But people think, I hear about these crazy, this smoking, marijuana, weed. These are not Pashat Zachen at all. Don't look for the shortcuts in life. There are no shortcuts in Avodas Hashem. Don't look for the shortcuts. Don't look for the fluff. Let's build a banana split from the ground up. Let's start with the Gishmak ice cream. Doesn't mean I'm giving a hamlotza. We should go on and get ice cream. But like the Divrei Yechezkel Shen of Rav, the meat and potatoes, that's the Torah and the Tefillah. That's got to be the foundation. It's got to be a foundation of Torah and Tefillah. That doesn't do it for you. Okay, so let's find a way to work on Tefillah. Let's find a way. What minion do you like? What type of style? There's something here for everybody. Just this morning, I davened in an Eytan Mizrach minion. It was great. A very humbling experience. I was out of town in another community, and I walked in. They had great security. And they said, I'm sorry, you can't go in. I was going into daven. I'm sorry, you can't go in. I says, does anyone here recognize this person? I was like, they weren't letting me in to go down to the mini in this place. I said, I wish the Whitesville had security like this place. But in the end of the day, so Baruch Hashem, I finally made it. But I loved it. Eytan Mizrach. I got to hear Birkat Kohanim. In the end of the day, there's something here for everybody. If I could just be Messiah. There's a great of Osher Weiss. He said this at a project Inspire convention years ago. He said, you know what the ultimate Eben Hashem is? Someone who can learn like the best Litvish Rosh Yeshivas. And that person can daven like the most Heilig Hasidish Rebbes, the Admoirim, Heilig Admoirim. And they have the Kavod Torah of the Olam HaSfaradim. Kavod Torah of the Sfaradim, Mosuk Mivash, kissing the rub on the hand, Kavod Torah, and they have the Yashrus of the Yekis. And they have the emunah pshuta of the Hungarian Jews after the Holocaust. You package that together, and perhaps we could be moisef onto Rav Moshe Weiss. And the Abbas Yisrael of the Tziyonu, and the Etzipis Yeshua of the Chabadskers. We want Mashiach now. And the other day, what's the var? And there's a place in Yiddishkeit for everyone. We need Ashkenazim, Sfardim, Teiman, and Eytan Mizrach. We need Hasidish, we need Lifish, we need the Nadanachs. We need everybody, because everyone needs to find how are they going to get close to Kadosh Baruch Hu. But the tzana shova is, don't build it on cherries, on whipped cream, on sweet-tasting sprinkles and butterscotch toppings. Build it on the geschmack ice cream. Build it on the meat and potatoes, on the bread and butter of Yiddishkeit. And that's what makes sure you have your kviyas eaten the Torah. It doesn't do it for you, so let's find what does it for you. Let's find what's safer, what leave it. Nowadays, we got Zichru, Kinyan, Mesechta, we have Araisa, we have Dirsha, we have Mardik. There's a program for everybody, whatever pays for everybody. And Gemara doesn't do it for you, and there's so much out there. You got to want it. But your Yiddishkeit has to be built on the Adonai Paz, and the rock solid foundation has got to be some level of kviyas and learning. And some people might be Tanakh, so learn Tanakh, but it's got to be built on Torah. And it's got to be built on Tefillah. It's got to be built on Tefillah. And Tefillah is, yes, with a minyan, Tefillah B'tzivor. And it's finding the right minyan for you. It's finding the right source of Tefillah. But it's got to be dominating as a major part of your life, major part of your Baruch Hashem. Tefillah is that connection to the Borei Olam, that dvekas, that eskarvas. And then, once you have that foundation, Torah Voda, and Gemilas Chasadim, of course, Avos Parakal Mishnah Beis, you got your chesed, and you have your time for chesed, like Rachaim Kaneski, based on Ramesha, 1/10, or whatever it is. But you have the time of chesed. Okay, now let's add on all the sprinkles. Now let's add on all the Gebaldige Sachen. Let's get the right music at the right time. Let's find the right ways. But it's not through shortcuts, like smoking marijuana, weed, or any of these other crazy retreats and getting high. That's not the Ratzon Hashem. We're not going to get Rames's Tshuva in your day, reasons why marijuana is also. That's not today's discussion. For stop looking for shortcuts in Yiddishkeit. Yiddishkeit is build it on the bread and butter, the meat and potatoes. The lechem and dogan is the losh shvit. And then you can have what? For you, it's going to be Hasidish Torah. For you, comes it's. For you, you want to sing about, I don't know what the words, yab, yeah. I don't know what, if that does it for you, Beseder. But that's not the definition of your Yiddishkeit. You're an Even Hashem. Because of your davening, because of your learning, because of your Torah mitzvahs. That's the Iker foundation. Once you got the foundation, add on all those sprinklings and drippings and make it a geschmack of Yiddishkeit. Sprinkle and make it come alive, because that's what the Eibishter wants. He wants you to know there's something in Yiddishkeit for everyone. There's something in Torah and Tefillah for everybody. And you got to know it's got to be Gishmak, but it is Gishmak. You haven't found it yet. The quest continues every single day. Lech lecha vayelech Moshe. It's not about the destination. It's about the journey. And every Yid is on a journey. But keep that quest, keep that search going. Find the people that are excited about Yiddishkeit. Follow them, read from them, listen to them, talk to them. And keep that fire burning bright. And sometimes the fire is going to up. Sometimes it won't be the same passion, won't be the same verb. That's okay. As long as I'm constantly on that insatiable quest to get closer and closer to Kadosh Baruch Hu, to Vegas with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, l's'aneg al Hashem. That's the end goal. And may Hashem should give everybody, Siyata Dishmaya, should give Rabbi Eisenberg Shlita, Siyata Dishmaya, to continue to enable and empower every single year to live with a cheshbon.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Rabbi Feiner, for coming on.
A pleasure.
A Torah Anytime original series.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.